Welcome to the Black Box App Podcast. I'm your host, Kenneth Johnson. We are airing live on Frontliners TV. We do this thing on YouTube, and also we promote it on our social media feeds. It's the Black Box App Podcast. The Black Box App's a career consciousness portal for Black men. Speaking of Black men, I checked in about a month ago at the Black Men Excel Summit, courtesy of Black Enterprise, and had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman. As you can see, he got the fedora on. He keeps it really, really impressive. Met him, had the opportunity to just chop it up. Shout out to Frank Brady, too, for the introduction. And check out Frank Brady's podcast. He came on the Black Box App podcast and killed it. And I know that this is going to be an incredible conversation today with Mr. Chris Matthews. What's good, man?
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
Listen, I'm excited to have you. One, because you're a marriage counselor. I'll be transparent, I failed at that, right? I should have met you 15 years ago, right? Two, because you're an author, and I always admire the commitment that it takes to get a project like that done. And kudos to you for just doing all that you do. Now, as I understand, you were in New York City last week, and you had something going on here. Didn't holler at me, but nonetheless, we could have did this live from the Harlem Business Alliance. That would have been incredible. But I'll have you back to do that again. Here's what I want to talk about. If you don't mind, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so appreciate you for having me on. And just a little bit about me. I'm a marriage counselor, as you mentioned in the introduction, but how I became a marriage counselor was a journey that started off when I was an undergrad. Typical love story. You meet a college girlfriend and you fall in love quickly, but our story took a turn when I get the Chris, I'm pregnant phone call.
Okay.
So, we're 19 years old, don't have our careers established yet, still living at home with parents, and now we have a baby on the way. So at that point, I made a transition into fatherhood, to manhood really quickly. My wife and I chose to develop our relationship. I didn't just want to have children without having a family. But I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what a healthy marriage looked like. My mother and father had gotten divorced. I didn't have a lot of examples outside of my grandparents. So I went to my school counseling center, and I didn't see anybody in there that looked like me. Okay. I didn't see anyone of color, and I didn't see anyone that was a male. So I did the work the hard way. I studied. I got a lot of education around marriage. Long story short, fast forward, we end up graduating. We eventually got legally married, and we made it. So I then went back to school, got a master's in marriage and family therapy, because I wanted to reach back and help those young couples like myself and my wife that didn't have the skills and foundation when we were in college establishing a family. And I've developed a brand titled Marriage Underdog. And the Marriage Underdog brand is based on 10 characteristics identified by research that indicate if you have a higher level or chance for divorce.
Really?
So I work with marriage underdogs, those couples and relationship partners that have higher chances for divorce.
All right, so I know you spoke about 10 characteristics, man, and I didn't even see us going in this direction. But are there 2 or 3 that you're like, these are the pillars of these 10 characteristics? Anything that you can share with us?
Yeah, so I have an assessment on my website, and I'll be sure to send you that information to the notes for the viewers. But
give us the URL now, though, real quick. Just give us the URL now. What's the website?
So relationshipcounselinggroup.com. If you click on the marriage assessment or marriage quiz, you'll see the 10 different questions. But some that stand out are if you are on a second or third marriage. That's a big one. If you married before the age of 26, if you have parents that divorced or never married, if you have a child before marriage, if you cohabitate or live together before marriage, if you marry a partner outside of your race, if you marry a partner that shares a different religious background than you. Those are just a couple that stand out. If you are in a situation where you've been with your partner and infidelity or cheating came about, and then one in particular, a lot of married couples have to be mindful of this one. If you've ever threatened to break up or divorce, that's a major characteristic as well. Okay. So I've named several of them, but you can go online and take the quiz that I developed. And I made sure that I linked these questions to data and research because my wife and I, we fit or we had fit 7 of those 10 characteristics at the time of our marriage.
Wow.
So we're true, authentic marriage underdogs. And I'm proud to say we're going on 14 years of marriage and 17 years still kicking it with 3 children, and we work together in business.
Congratulations to you, my brother.
Definitely want to lay that foundation so your viewers know you're not just speaking to someone that talks about marriage, but lives it happily every day as well.
I think that's really important, right? That you live it. But I want to step back just a little. I find it extremely interesting that you took a situation that a lot of people, I'm just going to call it what it is. A lot of people run from it. Not only did you embrace it, but then you created a career off of it. That is amazing. Like, was that the intention?
So it really wasn't the intention. I had no desire to get married, to have children. I always joke with my kids. I tell them I was just going to be a high school gym teacher that coached football, lived in a crappy apartment, maybe was a bachelor and ate pizza every night, right? Like, I had no ambition. And my situation was so unique because my wife, and this is the value of having such a good partner, because my wife instilled lessons in me, not just through our journey of having a child young, but her work ethic, her desire to study, and her ability to be such a strong woman rubbed off on me. And I was like competitive. I was like, man, I can't have my woman out here outdoing me. So I need to make sure I take care of my business in the classroom. I need to make sure I take care of my business financially. So the journey of going through that struggle made me who I am. And I got to grow up with a partner. My wife and I got to grow up together. We were kids when we met.
Sure.
So I think, that journey was God ordained for me to be who I am. And I wouldn't change anything.
All right. So let's talk about the education around that. So you're in undergrad and you start thinking like, all right, this may be a direction I need to go in. So what, if you don't mind me asking, what's your undergrad degree in?
So my undergrad, oddly enough, is in public health.
Okay.
So I joke about it and I actually write about this in my book, because I sought my wife out because I wasn't promiscuous in college like the norm for some people are. I wanted one partner because in public health, you're learning about STDs and all these different diseases. So I was like, no, I want to make sure I have a committed relationship with someone I'm only with and they're only with me. So, but it is fascinating. I get picked on a lot because one of the internships I had at the time was to go into the health department and teach safe sex and teen pregnancy prevention. And I'm a teenager getting pregnant, right?
They're like, listen, were you listening to what you were talking about, right? Were you internalizing the information yourself? It's like the person that comes out and does the DARE program, but then they get arrested for drug use.
For drugs.
Like you're like, what's going on here? So all right, so you go through undergrad and you're formalizing, I guess mentally, you're getting a better understanding of who you are and what your destined origin is at this point in your life. And you say, you know what, I need to go and I guess pursue a master's in marriage counseling.
Yeah. So at the time I was working in the field of substance abuse counseling. So I'd already obtained credentials as a substance abuse counselor working at an agency locally in my city. And the goal was to just make enough money to be comfortable. And what I realized is that in the social service and human service realm, that's very tough to do. Unless you're in administration, you're not going to generate the money needed to be comfortable. And that's what drew me into entrepreneurship. I've been an entrepreneur running a business for 11 years, and my wife's support. I told my wife, I said, hey, look, we got to make way more money than what these people are going to be paying me. And I have to start a business. And at the time I was told there's really only 3 ways to generate wealth: entrepreneurship, real estate, and the stock market. And I didn't like numbers, so stock market was out. I was not, my risk tolerance wasn't there for real estate. So I found my niche in developing businesses, and I wanted to develop businesses that I was passionate about. So I got an opportunity to develop my first business, Behavioral Health Intervention Center, where we offer court mandated programs for clients that get DWIs or need drug violations reduced. They'll do our programming. And we also work with employee assistance programs to get truck drivers and Department of Transportation workers back on the road after failing drug tests. And that business opportunity really opened up my life because I now was in control of my finances. I was in control of going out there. And you know, as an entrepreneur, you eat what you kill. If you don't develop contracts in business, you don't eat that day.
Sure.
So that whole process was motivated because I had mouths to feed, you know, and then from that, I joke, when I went back to grad school, I was already a six-figure earner. You know, I actually employed one of my professors part-time through my own counseling center.
Nice.
So I wasn't a rags to riches story, man. You know, my wife and I were poor in college. We were poor for that first year, but once the business hit, I mean, we've been good financially, but using that money to get other people jobs, to grow and really make an impact in my community, and be good about my character in terms of my reputation. When people hear my name, they know it's going to be quality service. They know I don't do anything shady, or you know, I'm by the book with my ethics. And I think, you know, what you're doing in terms of helping bridge that gap between high earners and corporations seeking out diversified employers, or excuse me, employees, is why I wanted to be on your show as well, because of what you're doing. And I loved your TED Talk, by the way, as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, man, we're going to probably have several other conversations because there's so many parallels. When I was in college at the University of Maryland, my plan was to pursue opportunities to lead employee assistance programs internally at organizations and things of that nature. And yeah, I did a pivot in a sense, but it's still something close to my heart, the whole substance abuse counseling and things of that nature, for a lot of different reasons. And I'll talk to you about that at another time. You know, I want to speak a little bit about this. So I know you're an entrepreneur, but you have a very straight career line to entrepreneurship, right? Like, you needed to do what you needed to do educationally to become an entrepreneur. You see where I'm at here? Like, let's just say you decided to own a bunch of car washes. Mm-hmm. Well, you might not have needed any particular education per se. I mean, you need to know how to run a business, but like, for you to do what you do as an entrepreneur, you have to have those credentials, right? I would imagine. So with that being said, for listeners of the Black Box App podcast that may be saying, how do I pivot and take what I do as a career into my own actual business? Do you have any advice for people that are just starting out formalizing that idea?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I share that advice, I do want to fill in the gap. I'd obtained a master's in leadership with a concentration in HR before getting my second master's in marriage and family. So I actually got formal training in business, because I wanted to go into entrepreneurship with some type of structure or foundation.
Makes sense.
So while I was in graduate school working on a master's that was in the business school, I was starting the business. So I would take my school assignments and apply them to real life. So I didn't want to make it as if I didn't have formal training in business. But to answer your question, for those that are listening, the first thing that you do is don't quit your first job and put all your chips on the table for your business. And that's my opinion, and that's worked for me. The reason why my wife supported my entrepreneurial dreams is because my income didn't stop. I was making money at a job while I was building my business. And I coined the term promotion through demotion. As I demoted my job, I was promoting my business.
Yes.
And it kept stress lower, and it allowed my wife to trust me, because the first couple of years of business are going to be rocky. The first year of business, I had 2 clients and I was paying on office space, right? I took extreme losses the first 2 years. It wasn't until year 3 when I realized that the relationships were going to be the catalyst for the business. And then once the courts and other companies bought into what I was doing, the sky was the limit. We were off to the races at that point. Wow. So that advice, just to reiterate, make sure that you sustain income while building your business. Don't try to listen to all your media out there that says you just got to throw everything in the pot. No, you don't. That's how you lose your marriage. That's how your partner leaves.
There you go.
Because I told my wife asked me to make one promise to her. I don't want my quality of life to change while you pursue your business. No problem. I got you. And at the time, that was easy. I was making like $45,000 a year at a school. Like, okay, great. So I had a second shift job, which was building my business at night while everybody was sleeping. I was working on the business.
Wow, interesting. So it sounds to me, tell me, was there a mentorship play that came into your life that maybe assisted in that? Because it seems like you were doing a lot of the heavy lifting with your eyes wide open, just saying, hey, let me figure this out.
So absolutely, mentorship is important. And my LinkedIn post 2 days ago was based around the 4 B's to mentorship.
Yeah.
So my father, when I told my dad I wanted to be an entrepreneur, the first book he gave me was the E-Myth. And the E-Myth breaks down the difference between being a technician and a business owner. And I had to start off as the technician. I did everything in the business. But as soon as I was able to begin to garnish support and help, which I utilized interns for initially. So I was able to gain interns from my university I attended, and that was free labor. And all I had to do was sign off on their paperwork. So the plan developed through books. My mentors were people who I've never met. They were authors of books.
Yeah.
It wasn't until year 3 I met a gentleman who had also owned a substance abuse clinic. And in our state, you have to have licensed codes, and you can't get the codes without a backing from someone. So he backed me to gain access to state licenses and codes to authorize my facility to help clients with DWIs. And at that point, I paid him money. I paid for his mentorship. I was paying him $1,000 a month just for his mentorship. Most people aren't going to pay someone for that type of knowledge and access to a system around. And that was the thing, man. I was all in terms of I didn't put a limit or I didn't put a budget on access to information.
Money well spent. And let's stay there for a second. Talk to the listeners about the importance of professional development, not simply in your field, but just as a way of living life and advancing.
It's everything. I'm constantly developing myself. I currently have a strategist. I utilize coaches. I'm constantly reading material and books, doing research. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to continuously invest in yourself. I'm going to conferences, trainings. I'm always looking for an opportunity to grow me, my network, building relationships that are valuable. That is entrepreneurship. And what happens with a lot of people who start businesses, we can't get out of being a technician. We're constantly the service provider, and we can't step back enough to grow the business. So right now, if someone wants to see me for counseling, it's very limited. I'm not doing counseling all day. I'm managing a business that offers counseling services. So I'm looking at, who I need to bring in to deliver the services. I'm working with a marketing team. I'm working with my strategist. I'm working with a program manager who manages my interns and manages my staff. So the oversight is really going to be the value of an entrepreneur. You got to get to a point where you're not so into the day-to-day that you can step back enough to grow your business. And that takes a level of risk when it comes to letting your ego down, right? Like my father was really big on, he was saying, Chris, yes, everyone is not going to do it the way you're going to do it, but if they can do it at least 70% or even 60% of how you do it, that's enough for you to continue to grow it. So letting go and understanding that the people you hire aren't going to be you, but they can still do a good job.
So let's talk about this. So when I met you, and man, one of the things that just remained cemented in my brain, I met you, and within 3 minutes of our initial conversation and me kind of giving that wow, like to what you do, you started giving me data. Like, boom, you were rolling it off the top of your head. And I'm like, you know what? He enjoys what he does. So how do you still quench your passion for doing that work? I would imagine you really enjoy doing the counseling piece though, and the therapy side.
I do. I just limit it, right? I don't do more than about 3 to 5 hours of counseling a week.
Okay.
Right. Like I still have to be a counselor to continue to sharpen my skills and grow my craft. I just see a different type of clientele now. The clientele that I see are high earners. So for those 3 to 5 sessions, I can generate the revenue that someone that might see 20 people gets. I'm always reading, right? Like before this interview, I was going back and reading a couple research articles that I love to, because I love to do research. One of my first jobs in college was a research assistant. I was a graduate research assistant as an undergrad. And one of the articles I was just reading in preparation for what you do in the population you work with, pulling finances and relationship satisfaction, right? So integrating business and marriage. And that's why I was there at Black Enterprise presenting on not just mental health, but how marriage and relationships correlate with professional success and growth, right? So like if you look at some of this data, pulling your finances, partners who have joint accounts are 22% less likely to separate in comparison to partners that have separate accounts. Looking at additional research around how men who are married generate higher earning potentials over the course of their career compared to men who are not married, but understanding out the why and looking at how the family system is an asset to you professionally. And those are things that I like to talk about in the business space, in the entrepreneurial space, because when we were at the conference, you recall Bob Johnson was there.
Yes.
And we think about Bob Johnson, his first marriage ended in divorce. We think about Jeff Bezos, his marriage ended in divorce. Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, their marriage ended in divorce. So that's where I'm at now. And my passion is there with the numbers, but I'm also trying to figure out why. Like I want to get that qualitative data to present the narratives and the stories to people, because I've met with a lot of couples who have a lot of money. Most of my clientele are very well off, but they're miserable because their family or their relationship's not together. And you can't enjoy the money. You know how it is when you're in a relationship and your partner is not right and you're not right. Everything's wrong at that point, no matter how much money you have.
Amazing. Look, I'm not going to, I want to speak about the book. Talk to me about the book.
Definitely. So the book I have out now is called Finding Your Relationship Fix, The 4 Reasons Couples Seek Counseling. And this book was written because people would come to me and ask questions about marriage counseling. When should you go to marriage counseling? Who should you see for marriage counseling? What does marriage counseling entail? What does marriage counseling entail if you're not married? Should you still do marriage counseling in premarital phases or the dating phase? Yes. And the book goes into the 4 reasons why couples seek out counseling and how counseling can help grow you and your relationship.
Man, I love it. Where can people find the book?
Amazon, and it's also available on my website, chrisamatthews.com. That's Matthews with 2 T's. And if you type in the title, Finding Your Relationship Fix, it'll be available on Amazon as well as my website.
Man, you are doing amazing work out here, my friend. Talk to me about what's the goal here. I know you're showing up at like BE and you're an SME, you're a subject matter expert in the space. You're showing up on TV and different radio outlets. What's the game for Chris Matthews? Is it about really improving the success rate for marriages and underrepresented communities? Like, tell me the tagline.
Absolutely. So as I shared earlier, that marriage underdog brand is really the goal right now. My vision when it comes to being present on TV or speaking at conferences, getting the message out. And I'm making a transition into doing speaking because I realized that not only my story, but the experiences that I've gained doing counseling over these years with couples has to be spread on a larger platform. And you've heard the analogy of the gentleman who throws one seashell into the ocean at a time. I realized that certain people are put in positions to do more than just one seashell at a time. And my vision is to link up with the right people. That's my prayer. My prayer to God constantly is, God, put me in front of the right people, because I felt like for so long I was being played through headphones and I'm ready to be played through loudspeakers. So my vision is to put myself in position to be played through loudspeakers, to find a platform where I can consistently speak about marriage, the value of marriage, and how family, especially Black families, can be built and rebuilt if we invest in better intimate partner relationships.
let's go unilateral here. What do we need to do as Black men to advance that conversation?
The first thing we have to do is work on ourselves. And when you think about a relationship, it's you bringing all of you into that shared space. I can't tell you how many times I'm working with men and women in counseling, and the man doesn't acknowledge the influence he has on his partner. That influence is leadership. So a lot of women, because just historically speaking, are deeper in tune with their emotions than we are as men, will follow our lead and we don't even know that's happening, right? So if a man is playing the field and he got 2 or 3 women on the side and he's messing with one girl and he's trying to get serious with her, but she knows she got other people, that's playing games. So we got to stop playing games and grow up and mature and acknowledge that we don't get but one shot with a woman, because if you present yourself in a negative fashion and you playing games and she don't trust you, it's an uphill battle. And we got too many Black men starting out in uphill battles in relationships because we're not serious about what we're doing and we playing games. So let's get our stuff together, stop playing games, be direct, and if we know we want a relationship, let's commit to that and not be afraid to get hurt. And if you get hurt, that's fine, move on. But everybody's so afraid of getting hurt that we're just playing games with each other and we're turning relationships into entertainment, and that's not what they're meant for.
Not at all. Not at all. It's serious business here. Listen, we're here with Chris Matthews on the Black Box App Podcast. Please check out the book. Please visit the website. Look at the resources available. And if you're married, you don't even have to be having any challenges right now, but reach out to Chris just to make sure that you provide a stable foundation for success around your marriage and your family and your life. Brother, I really appreciate what you do, man, and I appreciate you. You are a true good dude. Thank you so very much for coming through on the Black Box App Podcast.
And thanks for having me.
It's been a blessing. Listen, again, go visit. Hey, Chris, I don't want to get this wrong. Relationshipcounselinggroup.com.
Right. Relationshipcounselinggroup.com, and also my personal website, chrisamatthews.com.
Chris A. Matthews dropping complete information for you to better yourself and to better your families. Chris, thank you so very much. We'll be talking soon, my friend.
Thank you.